It started with a whimper. Not hers, the dog's. Jenna had heard it from the alley behind the gas station. Soft, pitiful, and scared. She didn't think. She didn't weigh the risk. She just followed the sound, heart first. And that's how she ended up here, on the edge of nowhere, hugging a half-frozen stray dog in the middle of a deserted road long after midnight. The air was razor-thin and sharp with cold. Her breath came in clouds, white and quick. But it wasn't the cold that made her body shake. It was them. 3 men. She didn't know their names. Didn't need to. You learn early in life to recognize danger by the way it walks, not by the words it says. And these men, they walked like trouble, like the kind of trouble that smiled with teeth. One of them stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "You look lost, sweetheart." She didn't respond, just held the dog tighter. It was trembling in her arms, its heartbeat racing like a tiny drum. And for a second, she thought maybe it wasn't just the dog. Maybe her own heart was trying to run before her legs could. The second man laughed. It wasn't the funny kind of laugh. It was the kind that makes your skin crawl. "What you got there? A little liar with a mutt?" Jenna took a step back. Just one. The gravel crunched beneath her boot like a scream in the silence. The third man leaned in, eyes glinting. "Put it down. Dogs don't like liars." She froze. The dog let out a soft whine, curling tighter into her arms. It didn't trust them. Neither did she. But there was nowhere to run. The road behind her was black, endless. The forest on both sides, thick and dark and full of unknown things. And the world was silent. No cars, no headlights, no one coming. No one ever came. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but no words came. Only fear, raw and real. And then, headlights, blinding, sudden, beautiful. A black SUV cut through the dark like a ship through fog, tires grinding to a stop behind them. Its lights lit up the road and the monsters on it. The men turned, faces twitching. And before Jenna could even blink, a door opened. A man stepped out. He didn't yell, he didn't threaten. He simply looked at them, his voice low and cold as steel. "Walk away." Just 2 words, but they landed like thunder. The SUV door creaked open. Out stepped a man not in a uniform, not with a weapon, and not in a hurry. But somehow, his presence hit harder than any siren ever could. He was tall, broad shoulders, dark coat, calm face. The kind of calm that doesn't need to prove anything. The kind that makes other people second-guess their next move. He didn't glare. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at the 3 men with quiet intensity and said, "Walk. Away." 2 words. Steady. Controlled. Like granite. And just like that, the air shifted. The loudest of the 3 flinched, his grin faltering. The second man took a step back. Even the third one, who looked like he had something smart to say, swallowed the words before they left his mouth. None of them dared challenge him. Because it wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Like a man who'd been through enough hell that nothing scared him anymore. Like a man who'd tear you apart if you gave him a reason, but wasn't looking for one. They backed off. No fight, no bravado, just silence. And then they disappeared into the night. He turned to Jenna. His eyes didn't search. They didn't judge. They just asked, "Are you okay?" without saying the words. She stood frozen, her arms still wrapped around the trembling dog. She nodded, too shocked to speak. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, she didn't feel like prey. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask what happened. He simply walked toward her. Not fast, not slow, reached out his hand. Not for her, but for the dog. "He's scared," the man said gently. "You are too. Let's get both of you somewhere safe." There was no urgency in his voice, no demand, just truth. Jenna hesitated. Her feet were frozen, not from the cold, but from disbelief. People didn't just help, not like this, not without wanting something back. But something about this man, his voice, his silence, the way he didn't stare at her like a puzzle to solve, made the fear in her chest loosen just a little. She followed him. The dog still curled tightly in her arms. The SUV was warm, smelled like leather and old coffee. Quiet jazz played softly through the speakers, the kind of music that belonged in a place with a fireplace, not a car parked in the middle of nowhere. He started the engine without saying another word, drove, calm, measured. Only after a long, quiet stretch of road did he ask, eyes still on the highway, "What's your name?" She hesitated before whispering, Jenna Myers. He nodded. Ethan. That was it. No last name, no interrogation, just two people, two names, and one strange, flickering feeling of not being alone. But Jenna didn't trust it. Not yet, because in her world, kindness was currency, and people always came to collect. You don't become this guarded overnight. Jenna didn't grow up in safety. She grew up in survival mode. Her dad left when she was 5. No dramatic goodbye, just a sticky note on the counter and an empty bank account. Her mother cried for 3 weeks straight, then dried up like a cracked riverbed. From that moment on, love was replaced with responsibility. Hugs disappeared. Smiles became rare. By the time Jenna turned 10, she had already learned that asking for too much, sometimes just asking for anything, made you a burden. And then came Mark, her mom's new boyfriend. At first, he seemed okay. He brought flowers, washed dishes, laughed at all the right moments. But evil doesn't always slam the door. Sometimes it tiptoes in, wearing a charming smile. It started with small comments. You always leave your shoes out. You eat like you've never had manners. Your mom works hard and you just sit around with your sketchbook. Jenna bit her tongue for years because her mom seemed happy. And Jenna wanted her to stay happy. But over time, Mark's tone changed. Sarcastic turned to sharp. Passive turned to poison. And Jenna, no matter how hard she tried, was always in the way. She worked weekends at a local diner to help with groceries. She studied accounting because her mother said it was practical. She hid her art, her dreams, and most of all, her pain. Until one night, just one, a simple dinner, nothing fancy, she had cooked pasta. He didn't like the pan she used. He raised his voice. Jenna, exhausted, raised hers back. And then he said it, the sentence that cracked her world in half. You're just like your father, useless, and always running the second life gets hard. The words hit harder than a slap. And her mother? She didn't defend her, didn't even look at her. She banged her fist on the table and told Jenna to apologize, to him. That was the night Jenna packed her bag, took her sketchbook, her last $72, and walked away. Not just from the apartment, from everything she'd ever begged to feel like home. Jenna had slept on train station benches, on laundry room floors, even once behind a dumpster just to stay dry. So when she stepped into the guest house that night, warm, quiet, clean, something inside her tightened. It was too much, too safe, too kind. The couch didn't sag. The sheets smelled like lavender. The fridge had food with real expiration dates. She didn't trust it. In her world, comfort always came with a cost. And if you couldn't see the price right away, it just meant it was hidden better. But Ethan said nothing. No small talk, no pity. He just handed her a set of keys and said, "The guest house is yours. Food's in the fridge, towels in the bathroom. Lock the door from inside when I leave." That was it. No questions, no conditions. No, what did you do? No, why are you here? The next morning he came back. Same calm eyes, same neutral tone. "I need someone to help around the property," he said. "Cleaning, cooking, laundry. Nothing crazy, you'll be paid, and you can stay as long as you need." Jenna blinked. She almost asked, "Why me?" But something in his voice stopped her. He wasn't offering charity. He was offering trust. And for the first time in her life, she didn't have to beg for it. She didn't have to prove she deserved it. She didn't have to apologize for needing it. She just had to show up. And she did. It started with a pencil. Blunt, barely usable, forgotten at the bottom of her backpack, its wood splintered and its point dull. She almost threw it away, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way the sunlight poured through the guesthouse windows. Maybe it was the silence, not cold like the kind she'd known, but soft, almost inviting. She found her old sketchbook buried deep beneath a crumpled hoodie and a bag of socks. Its cover was scratched. The pages smelled faintly of graphite and dust. And memory. She sat by the window, hands hesitant at first. Her lines were clumsy. But then muscle memory took over. The first sketch was Lucky curled up on the porch, then the row of pine trees, then the steps of the guest house. Line by line, the world began to take shape again through her hands, not her fears. It felt like breathing for the first time after being underwater too long. She drew for hours, forgetting dinner, forgetting the ache in her back, forgetting the voice in her head that used to whisper, "It's pointless." She didn't notice Ethan standing at the edge of the porch. He didn't interrupt. He didn't speak. He just watched. Watched the way her brow furrowed, the way her hands trembled, not from fear, but from effort, from hope. And in that quiet moment, Ethan didn't see a runaway or a housekeeper. He saw someone coming back to life. It was just a knock, but it made Jenna freeze. She was standing by the kitchen sink drying a glass. Lucky was asleep near the door. The house was still, and then 3 soft taps. She opened the door and found Ethan standing there. Not his usual calm, not his unreadable silence. This time, he looked nervous. He cleared his throat, didn't step inside. "Hey," he said. "Can we talk?" Those words alone made her chest tighten. She nodded. Ethan stepped in, ran a hand through his hair the way people do when they're about to say something uncomfortable. "My parents are coming to visit this weekend," he said. They think I've been alone too long, and my dad, his health's not great. I don't want to give him any more reason to worry." Jenna stayed quiet. Then came the pause, the kind of pause that meant something was coming, something big. "I need a favor," Ethan said. She waited. "I want you to pretend to be my fiancé." The words hit her like a door slamming shut. "Just for the weekend," he added quickly. "They'll feel better seeing me settled, happy. You don't have to say much. Just be here, beside me." Jenna blinked. Fiancé? Her? The runaway? The housekeeper? She almost laughed. Except, he wasn't joking. Jenna didn't say yes right away. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tight in her lap, heart racing like she was about to take a test she hadn't studied for. "I'm not good at lying," she finally whispered. "I'm not good at pretending." Ethan didn't push. He just stood there, waiting, not like a man demanding help, but like someone asking for a favor he knew he had no right to expect. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm asking you." That sentence struck something deep. He wasn't choosing her despite her honesty. He was choosing her because of it. Jenna looked at the floor, then at her hands, then at him. She didn't owe him anything, but a part of her, the part that hadn't been touched in years, wanted to say yes, not because of duty, not because of debt, but because she didn't want to leave just yet. "Okay," she said quietly, "I'll do it." Ethan didn't smile wide. He just nodded, grateful, quiet. Then reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. From inside, he took out a ring. It wasn't flashy, no diamonds, no glitter, just a thin silver band. Simple, clean, honest. "I figured it'd help sell the story," he said. Jenna took the ring. It was cold at first, but as she slid it onto her finger, it warmed. And for a second, it didn't feel like acting. It felt like being seen. Jenna had worn dresses before, but never like this. Never because someone had picked one out just for her. Never because a man, Ethan, had looked at her for more than 2 seconds and said, "You look perfect." The soft blue fabric hugged her frame gently. The silver ring shimmered faintly under the afternoon sun. Lucky wagged his tail at her feet like even he could feel something was different. Then, the car pulled into the driveway, and everything in her chest tightened. Ethan's mother stepped out first, petite, elegant, with a knitted scarf looped twice around her neck. Then came his father, taller, silver-haired, and walking with care, like every step was measured. "You ready?" Ethan asked under his breath. Jenna nodded, even though her hands were sweating. They walked out together. Ethan's hand found hers, naturally, not like acting, like muscle memory. "Mom, Dad," Ethan said, "this is Jenna, my fiancée." There was a silence, just a second. And then his mother lit up. She walked forward, arms open, and hugged Jenna like she'd been waiting years to do so. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," she said, her voice soft. "I thought I'd never get to meet the woman who finally tamed him." Jenna almost laughed, almost cried, because none of it felt fake. Not the dinner, not the stories, not the glances Ethan kept stealing when he thought she wasn't looking. And then came the moment Jenna would never forget. After dessert, Ethan's mother reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in tissue paper. "I made this last winter," she said, unfolding it carefully. "Didn't know who it was for at the time, but now I do." She handed Jenna a scarf, soft gray and cream, hand-knitted, every stitch tight with care. "It's yours." Jenna stared at it. No one had ever made her something like this. Not since before everything went wrong. She swallowed hard and whispered, "Thank you." But what she really meant was, "I'm not used to being seen like this. I'm not used to being wanted." And the scariest part? She didn't want it to end. The sound of tires on gravel snapped Jenna out of her thoughts. She was in the kitchen kneading dough with flour-dusted fingers when she looked up and saw a sleek silver car pulling into the driveway, one she didn't recognize. Lucky barked once, low and unsure. Jenna wiped her hands and moved to the window. A woman stepped out. Tall. Striking. Polished. The kind of woman who looked like she walked out of a designer catalog. All sharp heels, sharper cheekbones, and a face that didn't flinch. She didn't belong in this quiet forest. She belonged in boardrooms, in cocktail parties, in control. Ethan was already on the porch by the time she reached the steps. He didn't smile, didn't open his arms, he just braced. Jenna couldn't hear their words, but she saw the tight set of Ethan's jaw. The way his hands dug into his pockets like they were hiding something. Then the woman turned, and her eyes landed directly on Jenna. Cold, calculating. She smiled, not kindly, and walked straight into the house with Ethan following behind. Jenna's chest tightened. She didn't know who this woman was, but everything about her screamed, "You don't belong here." Later that afternoon, as Jenna carried a tray of glasses into the dining room, the woman appeared beside her like a shadow. Too close, too quiet. "Pretty dress," she said smoothly. "Let me guess." He picked it. Jenna noted, unsure how to respond. The woman leaned in, her voice a whisper lined with venom. "You have no idea who he really is, do you, sweetheart?" Jenna froze, and for the first time in days, she felt the old fear rise in her throat again, the kind that said this was too good to be true all along. The scarf was still in her lap, soft, gray and cream, hand-stitched. So full of warmth, it almost made her believe this was real. Almost. But Alina's words clung to her ribs like burrs. "You don't know who he really is, do you, sweetheart?" It shouldn't have gotten to her, but it did. Because deep down, Jenna already feared that truth. She stood in the guest house, the sunset dripping gold through the window. Her hands moved on their own, packing her bag, folding her clothes, tucking away her sketchbook. She didn't want to leave. But she didn't want to stay as a placeholder either, a pretend girlfriend, a convenience story, a charity case in a borrowed house. She zipped her bag halfway when a knock came. Not sharp, not urgent, just steady. She opened the door. Ethan stood there, his expression unreadable, but his presence grounding. "Alina's gone," he said simply. Jenna nodded, didn't meet his eyes, didn't know how. He looked past her shoulder at the half-packed bag on the bed, then back at her. "You're leaving," she swallowed, her voice cracked. I don't want to be a tool in some story you're telling." "You're not," he said. No hesitation, no anger, just truth. "You're not a prop or a favor. You're the first person who's made this place feel like home again." Jenna blanked. That word, home. She didn't realize how much she needed to hear it until now. She stayed, not because it was safe, not because she was certain, but because somewhere inside, something had shifted. That night, after Ethan's words echoed in her chest, Jenna unpacked her bag, slowly, like every sweater folded was a tiny act of trust. Like every book placed back on the shelf whispered, maybe this time it won't fall apart. But that was the lie she feared most, falling. Not from cliffs or stairs, but falling into someone. Letting her walls down just enough for feelings to get in, and worse, for them to grow. She stood at the window of the guest house, watching snow begin to fall like feathers from a torn sky. "Don't be stupid," she muttered to herself. But her fingers still touched the silver ring, still turned it slowly over her skin. It wasn't the ring that scared her. It was what it meant. That she wanted to believe this could be more. That Ethan wasn't just a man who gave her shelter, but someone who made her heart ache in the most unfamiliar, beautiful way. And that kind of longing, it was a knife with a sugar edge. Beautiful, but deadly if she let it cut too deep. The fireplace crackled low. Dinner was over. The dishes were cleared. The house had fallen into one of those rare silences, not empty, but full of things unsaid. Jenna was by the window, arms folded, watching the snow settle into the earth like it belonged there, like it always had. Then, "You made them smile," Ethan's voice came from behind. She turned. He wasn't close, but his voice felt near. "My parents," he clarified. "Tonight. That was the first time I've seen them laugh like that in maybe 5 years." Jenna's lips parted, unsure what to say. Ethan stepped forward slowly, like he was crossing something fragile. "You reminded me," he added, "what home used to feel like, before everything turned quiet." His eyes met hers. "You made this place feel alive again." She almost laughed, or cried. She wasn't sure which. Because no one had ever said something like that to her before, not without wanting something in return. And especially not like this, with so much softness. She looked down. Her hands had started to tremble just a little. "It was all pretend, though, right?" she whispered. But Ethan shook his head. "No, not all of it." And when he reached out and held her hand, he didn't let go. The cabin was quiet, but Jenna wasn't. She lay on her side, staring at the shadow of the ceiling. Snow outside kept falling, like time refusing to stop. And inside her chest, that terrifying warmth still lingered. Trust. It had slipped in uninvited. "You made this place feel alive again," she heard Ethan's voice on repeat, and hated how much she wanted it to be true. But wanting was dangerous, because once upon a time, she had trusted others. People who smiled sweetly and spoke kindly until they got what they wanted. A high school teacher who praised her art, then used it without credit. A boyfriend who said, "I believe in you," then disappeared with her savings. An aunt who offered shelter, then demanded everything but her soul. Every time she trusted the world had taken something. And now here was Ethan, handsome, capable, soft-spoken, with eyes that didn't flinch and hands that didn't force. Is he different, or just better at hiding the same lies? Jenna closed her eyes, but rest didn't come. She was no longer cold, but somehow she still didn't feel safe, because believing someone cared was the most dangerous thing she could do, especially if she was wrong. The car was warm. Ethan's parents sat in the back seat waving, smiling. "Take care of each other," his mother said, clutching Jenna's hand one last time. Jenna smiled back, but inside, she was breaking. The SUV pulled away, leaving twin tracks in the snow, one for each of them. She stood on the porch, watching until the red tail lights disappeared between the trees. Silence returned, the kind that filled your ears like cotton. Heavy, stubborn. Ethan stood beside her. Neither of them said anything for a long while. Then he asked quietly, "You okay?" Jenna nodded, but she wasn't, because something had shifted. When she slipped the silver ring off her finger that night, her heart felt bare. It was supposed to be pretend. But why does this goodbye hurt like something real? She folded the dress she wore that weekend carefully, like it mattered, like it had witnessed something sacred. In the mirror, she caught her own eyes, and for the first time didn't recognize them. They looked like someone who wanted to stay. But roles end, curtains fall, and sometimes the hardest thing isn't saying goodbye, it's pretending you're ready for it. Jenna stood by the kitchen sink. The silence in the cabin had become unbearable. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screams when you try to swallow the truth. She finally turned to him. "I should go." Ethan looked up from the fireplace, his eyes locked with hers, calm, unreadable. "You don't have to." She shook her head. "No, I do. Your parents are gone, the performance is over. I was just something to get you through the weekend." Her voice cracked on the last word. "You don't need me anymore." She tried to keep it matter of fact, but her hands betrayed her, trembling like leaves in winter wind. Ethan stood slowly, walked to her. He didn't touch her, not yet, just stood inches away and looked at her like she was the only thing holding his world together. "Jenna," he said, voice low and clear, "I never needed a performance." His words hung there. Then, softer, almost breaking, "I needed you." She blinked. Something in her chest clenched. Not the fake fiancé, not the one smiling through dinners and playing along. Just you. He finally reached out, gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You made this place feel like home. You made me feel like I wasn't just existing." Jenna's eyes filled with tears. Because the hardest part of not believing someone is when everything in your heart wants to. It was almost midnight. The fire had died down to embers. Snow tapped gently against the cabin windows. Jenna stood in the doorway, her coat in hand. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't know how. Ethan came down the stairs, still half ill from the cold, but his voice was stronger than it had been all day. "Jenna," she paused. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered, not turning around. But he did. He walked toward her slow, as if each step carried more than just footsteps. "I do," he said, "because ever since you came here," he looked around the quiet cabin. "This place started laughing again, breathing again. It used to echo, he said softly, "like a museum. Now it smells like cinnamon and paint and hope." He stepped closer. Their hands almost brushed. Then he reached out and gently touched hers. Not to hold, just to connect. "You didn't just come here to hide," he said. "You brought this place back to life." She turned, eyes shimmering. "I was just trying to survive." "And in doing that," he whispered, "you taught me how to live." Silence again, but not the empty kind. "Please don't go," he said, "not because I need a fiancé, but because I finally found someone who doesn't leave when things get quiet." Her breath caught, and the coat in her hand slipped just a little lower. The silence stretched. Her hand hovered over the suitcase. Just one pull and she'd be gone. Gone like every other time, gone like someone who never expected to be missed. But this time, there was a hand on hers, warm, steady, asking nothing, offering everything. Lucky the dog stood behind them, tail thumping softly, waiting. Jenna looked up. Ethan's eyes didn't plead. They promised. "You don't have to decide tonight," he whispered. But she had already decided. With one deep breath, she let go of the suitcase handle. It landed with a soft thud on the floor. And just like that, something in her heart landed too. She wasn't choosing comfort, or safety, or even romance. She was choosing truth. She was choosing to stay, not because she was needed, but because for the first time in her life, she was wanted. Lucky barked once, wagging harder. Ethan smiled. And Jenna, she finally smiled back. This wasn't the end of a performance. It was the beginning of belonging. There was no official ceremony, no ribbon to cut, no champagne toast. Just small changes, real changes. The bookshelf in the guest house slowly filled up with sketchbooks, pencil dust on the table, a coffee mug that said, "This is what healing looks like." Lucky got a new bed placed neatly beside Jenna's old trunk. And Ethan, he stopped knocking in the morning. Instead, he was always in the kitchen, waiting. 2 mugs ready, 1 smile soft. "Did you sleep okay? There's cinnamon toast if you want. Or I could ruin an omelet again." Jenna no longer flinched at kindness. She laughed. She even rolled her eyes sometimes. The walls, once bare and silent, now held her paintings of the forest, of Lucky, of Ethan standing in the rain with an umbrella meant only for her. And one night, as they sat by the fire, Lucky snoring between them, Jenna asked, "You still call this the guest house?" Ethan looked around, then at her. "No," he said quietly. "You changed its name the day you moved in." Jenna smiled, tracing the rim of her mug. She didn't need a deed or contract. She had something better. Proof was in the cinnamon toast, in the way Lucky followed her like home had legs, in the way Ethan looked at her like she was the view he'd been building the cabin for. It happened without warning. One Saturday, Ethan asked Jenna to wear the blue dress, the one he said matched her eyes, though she swore it didn't. He said it was a surprise, just a small dinner, nothing big. But when they arrived at the corner of Maple and 6th, she froze. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a gallery. Soft lights, white walls, and on those walls, her paintings. The forest at dawn, Lucky curled in sunlight, the cabin in winter, Ethan back-turned holding a steaming mug, her life, in strokes of graphite and color. Jenna stepped forward slowly, breath-catching. In the corner, she saw the nameplate, Reclaimed Spaces, a private exhibit by Jenna M. She turned to Ethan, voice trembling. "You sent them? Without telling me?" He nodded. "I couldn't let your work stay in the shadows. The world needs to see what healing looks like." A woman approached her about 60, elegant, soft voice. She pointed at one painting, the one of Jenna sitting on the porch with Lucky in her lap. "This one," she said, eyes misty. "It smells like home. I don't know how, but it feels like home." Jenna didn't know what to say, because that's exactly what she had painted. Not a porch, not a dog, but the feeling of finally being wanted. Ethan stood beside her, hand brushing hers. "This," he whispered, "is only the beginning." The gallery emptied, the lights dimmed, and Jenna stood in the quiet, looking at a life she once thought she'd lost forever, now hanging proudly on 4 white walls. She turned to leave, heart full, eyes soft, when she felt him behind her. Ethan. He didn't say a word. He just stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her from behind, not possessively, but like someone anchoring their world. His voice was low, almost trembling. "I have no intention of ever letting you go again." Jenna closed her eyes. For years, she'd braced herself for the next goodbye, the next betrayal, the next reason to pack her bags and disappear. But now, She didn't want to run. "Good," she whispered, "because I don't want to run anymore." Outside, Lucky barked once, impatient and joyful. Inside, two people stood quietly holding on, not just to each other, but to the home they'd built together. And from that moment on, it was no longer about pretending. It was about staying. Sometimes the greatest courage is not in running away from our past or pain, but in choosing to stay, to let ourselves be seen, to trust again, and to build something real from broken pieces. Healing doesn't come from perfection or immediate answers, but from those small, brave moments when we say, "I am worthy of love, and I deserve a home." Jenna's journey reminds us that second chances aren't just about new beginnings. They're about finding the strength to belong. If Jenna's story touched your heart, please hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to Pieces of Soul for more stories that inspire healing, hope, and courage. Together, we can create a community where everyone finds a place to belong. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are never alone.